the Israeli Defense Forces are defeating Hamas, and they are probably a couple of months away from completely destroying Hamas, not only as a terrorist force, but as the de facto government of Gaza. They are very reluctant to heed international calls, including calls from US officials, to have a ceasefire before this job is done. Been doing my level best to sample opinion right across from the ultra-Orthodox to the secular left. Ordinary Israelis are done with two-state solutions as a conversation topic. They're done with it. And they feel, however much they may disagree on certain political issues, they feel to me very united in regarding this as quite inappropriate thing to discuss in the wake of the horrendous terrorist attacks of October the 7th. I found greater national unity here than I think I was anticipating. The government is not about to stop this war against Hamas, regardless of what is said to them internationally. And people are broadly speaking behind this effort and very uninterested in talk of a two-state solution.
When I was there, I was meeting with a range of officials, both in and outside the government. Even within the coalition government, there's a range of views, obviously, because many of the members of the government, including members of the war cabinet, are bitter political enemies. Netanyahu and Gantz basically hate each other personally. Gadi Eisenkot, who's a part of Gantz's party, and he's in the war cabinet, also has been very public in his criticism of Netanyahu. And yet on the issues that Niall just spoke about, there's more or less unity. I went there in these meetings I had in Israel looking for daylight. And if you follow the press over here in the West, you're going there expecting there to be a lot of daylight, and there's virtually none. So take, for example, the issue of the two-state solution and this effort by the U.S. and the UN and some Arab capitals and the EU to try to push forward a very quick declaration or recognition of a Palestinian state. The Israeli cabinet put out a statement on Sunday during their cabinet meeting that every member of the cabinet signed off on, including Gantz, including Eisenkot, that basically said, no way. We are not starting this process with a declaration of a Palestinian state. We are not going to make, they didn't use these words, these are my words, but we're not going to make October 7th Palestinian Independence Day. And that position is held across the board. And then you think about the political constituencies that could be for a Palestinian state in Israel, which did once exist and was very vibrant. A lot of it was wiped out figuratively during the Second Intifada. So meaning the left in Israel was dramatically weakened during the Second Intifada in the early 2000s when there were 140 suicide bombings, over 1,000 Israelis slaughtered. And this was after Ehud Barak had went to Camp David and basically offered Yasser Arafat everything, right? He offered a Palestinian state. He offered East Jerusalem as the capital. I mean, he was willing to deal with every issue, and Arafat walked out, and Israel got the Second Intifada. So that wiped out a lot of the political support for a two-state solution. And now what was left within the Israeli political left was largely populated in southern Israel, in those kibbutzim. That is where the peace activists lived and were organizing and were working on coexistence with the Palestinian Gazans. And those are the people who are sitting in tunnels today being held hostage. Those kibbutzim were the ones that were raided. In 2014, which was the last time there was a major Israel-Gaza war with a serious ground troop presence, lasted about 50 days. It was those Israelis in the south that led the protest movement inside Israel calling on the Israeli government to stop the war because they wanted peaceful coexistence with the Palestinians in Gaza. And those are the Israelis that were slaughtered on October 7th, and their communities were destroyed, and many of them are being held hostage today. There's nobody in Israel right now, nobody, really, like on any of the fringes, nowhere can you find people that are arguing that this is the moment to declare a Palestinian state. I don't think they really know what they mean when they say Palestinian state. Different parties here have different views in mind and different agendas. The Biden administration has a domestic political concern, which is they need to get images of chaos in Gaza off the front page of the press and off of TikTok. And they need to be shown in their mind. This is their view. I'm not saying I agree with them, but in their view, the people around Biden need to bring down the temperature on the Palestinian issue and on the Hamas war issue inside the United States heading into 2024, because they're concerned about the, shall we say, deflated enthusiasm among the progressive base. And somehow this issue has become representative to them of an issue that they need to deal with in order to deal with the lack of enthusiasm among the progressive base as Biden heads into a re-election. I think they are overthinking it. I'm skeptical that them dealing with the Israel-Gaza issue is going to deal with their progressive base enthusiasm problem. But be that as it may, there's enough people around Biden saying that. And there are enough players in Arab capitals who they want Hamas destroyed. Everybody I speak to in the Arab world, really, they all want Hamas gone. And they also don't want this to be a political headache for them in their own countries to the extent it's a problem on the quote unquote Arab street. So they want Hamas gone. They want Israel to finish the job, but they want to be seen to be throwing a bone, providing something positive to the peaceful quote unquote Palestinian civilians that have been as victimized by Hamas as anybody. That is their view. They need to show some momentum on that front. What is emerging is some sort of declaration that there is going to be a Palestinian state. In Tony Blinken's words, a time-bound and irreversible, his words, which to me are the two of the most dangerous words I've heard in talking about a Palestinian state, time-bound and irreversible. Now, keep in mind, that language has never been used before by the U.S. government. The basis for negotiations that could lead to a Palestinian state have always been about the parties negotiating with one another directly, Israelis and Palestinians, without preconditions, just get to the table and negotiate. It's not time-bound and irreversible. It's absolutely reversible, meaning if Hamas or Hamas 2.0 takes over the political leadership of a quasi-Palestinian state, you bet the process is reversible. So the fact that Blinken used the word irreversible to me is quite alarming. In the past, historically, it's always been milestone-based, meaning this is the path we are on. If the Palestinians meet certain milestones, then they will get more and more instruments and assets of sovereignty on a path towards full sovereignty. I don't think it would ever be full sovereignty, meaning I don't think anyone wants a future Palestinian state to have its own military or its own airport or jurisdiction over its own airspace. But basically, any path to sovereignty is going to have to be milestone based. That's how it's historically been talked about. They're talking about making a move quickly and immediately towards a Palestinian state. I don't think there's any political leadership in any Palestinian faction ready to take up the leadership of the state. So I think it's sort of like an empty declaration. It's like it's just they want to be able to say the administration and the governments in the Arab capitals wants to be able to tell all the respective constituencies, look, we're doing something. We've done something never done before. We're declaring and recognizing a Palestinian state. That's never done before. We're not sure what that means. We're not sure who's going to lead it. We're not sure what the path is, but it's happening and it's irreversible. The spaceship has taken off. But I just think the message to the Palestinian people and to the broader Arab world is a very dangerous message to say the West has never recognized a Palestinian state ever. October 7th happens, the biggest massacre of Jews in a single day since the Holocaust, and now we declare a Palestinian state.